I'm your host, Martin Richardson, and welcome to SkyShift. This is another episode in the eVTOL area in terms of who are the pioneers and who are the players. And I'm very fortunate today to have Mike Hirschberg of the Vertical Flight Society on board. We're going to start with a short video introduction about who VFS is, and then we'll start our interview with Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Hirschberg, the Executive Director of the Vertical Flight Society. VFS was founded in 1943 as the American Helicopter Society and held its first annual awards banquet in October 1944, bringing together the Allied world's leading vertical flight developers. Today, 76 years later, we continue to bring the community together to advance vertical flight. This year is our 76th annual forum and technology display. We wish we could all be together in person for what is always the biggest and best vertical flight technical event in the world, but we hope you find our virtual Forum 76 carries on our tradition of excellence. The Society was founded just as the first American helicopters were put into production. Throughout its history, the Society has worked tirelessly to support the introduction of new technologies and not just helicopters. Since the 1970s, we've been among the biggest supporters of tiltrotor technology. In the 1990s, we provided foundational support for the Joint Strike Fighter program, today's F-35B. And in the 2000s, we started our unmanned vertical flight technology conferences. For the past 12 years, the Society has played an important role in establishing and supporting the Future Vertical Lift program. And in 2013, we were the first organization to recognize the transformative potential for electric vertical takeoff and landing, or eVTOL technology, and we've been leading efforts ever since. Each year, VFS organizes or co-sponsors several regional and international conferences to support the advancement of vertical flight. And importantly, we publish the conference proceedings, now all online. The Society also publishes the premier vertical flight technology magazine, VertiFlight, as well as the world's only peer-reviewed VTOL technical publication, the Journal of the AHS. VFS advocates on behalf of vertical flight technology to the public and governmental bodies, awards $100,000 in annual student scholarships, and sponsors an annual student design competition and other challenges for undergraduate and graduate students, supporting the future of our industry. We hope you enjoy our 76th annual award ceremony video, honoring the incredible accomplishments of our impressive individual and group award winners, as well as our 29 Vertical Flight Foundation scholarship winners. At Forum 76, we hope you take time to visit with all the exhibitors, learn from our 230 technical paper presentations and 20 VIP speakers, and spend time networking and talking with other attendees. Knowledge and collaboration are key to advancing vertical flight, and VFS provides the best opportunity for your professional development and helping your organization succeed, particularly in today's environment. If you aren't already a member, please join us and stay engaged year-round to help the VTOL community continue to move forward. Together, we can continue to advance vertical flight for the next 76 years and beyond.
So, Mike, can you give us a little bit of a background about your aviation history prior to coming on board the Vertical Flight Society?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an aerospace engineer. I joined VFS as staff in 2011. So 13 years. I had been a member since 96, so about 15 years, and had just really fell in love with the people, very welcoming, open, supporting community. And I'm always told that that's the way we still are today, even 20 years later. So I was working on different defense programs and advanced technologies, unmanned systems, and I first joined because I first became a member in 96 when I was working on the Joint Strike Fighter program, which is now the F-35, which has a STOVL or short takeoff and vertical landing component. So at the time, we were called the American Helicopter Society, but we are really everything. We started going by AHS International, and then 6 years ago in 2018, the Vertical Flight Society, just to really show that we're everything vertical. So drones, helicopters, advanced military and civil rotorcraft, and now, of course, eVTOL.
And about when would you say you started looking into the eVTOL arena?
Sure. So VFS, originally founded as the American Helicopter Society, as I said, was founded in 1943, so over 80 years ago. And despite the name, it's always really been looking pretty comprehensively at everything. I found something from 1969 that talks about, being the vertical flight society. But we really saw in the 2012-2013 timeframe this confluence of technologies and interests and funding that look towards this. We didn't have a name for it at the time. We called it transformative vertical flight propulsion systems and architectures. Um, the word electric VTOL had actually been coined about 2009. People started using eVTOL around 2009, 2010, but it wasn't really on the public consciousness for many years. But in the 2013 timeframe, there was sort of a jolt where we said, wow, this is really, where we saw this is really coming to be, beyond just, a fantasy of flying cars. This was something that was really, looked like it was really going to happen. And so we held the world's first conference workshop on electric VTOL. And we've really been the support organization for the technical development of electric vertical takeoff and landing technologies ever since.
Wow, I think it became mostly mainstream with the Uber Elevate platform back in 2019, but it sounds like you guys were way ahead of the game.
Yeah, they actually announced their initiative, Uber Elevate, at our event in September of 2016. That was our third annual. Third annual. Yeah, I think that was our third annual eVTOL workshop, where we brought together people from industry, academia, and government looking at this. And we'd been tracking different developments over the years, and obviously so had our other members who, because of their involvement, people like Mark Moore at NASA at the time, really got a lot of people excited about the potential for electric vertical takeoff and landing.
Yes, it's certainly revolutionized. This is kind of the newest thing in aviation that we haven't seen in quite some time. So my understanding too is Vertical Flight Society is very much an international flavor. Looking at your website, I've seen events in India last year. So my guess is you have associations all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at that conference in Bangalore. India is probably uniquely suited for some of the benefits that electric aviation can provide. They've got a lot of people, some people with no money, some people with a lot of money, but their infrastructure is terrible. I mean, just traveling around Bangalore, Bengaluru now, it was just maybe you'd say appalling road conditions. So terrible pollution and congestion to get anywhere. So I think it would be something that would be really a great benefit to populations like in Bangalore, like in India, where there's a lot of people, high density and really difficult to get, from one side of town to another, sort of jumping over. Instead of grinding through all the traffic, the wear and tear on your car, or the poor engine technology that's they have the auto tuk-tuks that are very polluting. So a lot of benefits could be had for around the world for electric VTOL technology.
Yeah, I think you point out India is highly suited based on everything you've talked about, the density of the population, the difficulty, and being in a major city, traveling as little as 5 miles can take hours. So again, no need for the infrastructure of roads or commercial rail systems with vertiports. India would be ideally suited for that technology. So tell me about some of your relationships with other partner organizations VFS works for.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a relatively small nonprofit. We're a charitable, educational, technical society, professional society for people working in industry, academia, and government. A lot of us are engineers, scientists, innovators. We don't represent the companies. Like I said, we have people from all facets of, I'll say, the ecosystem. And it's for people that are interested in either learning or advancing technology for things like vertical flight. So we represent the technologists, the people moving eVTOL forward. But there are a lot of other associations that have tremendous capabilities in other aspects. For instance, in the U.S., actually an international organization called the General Aviation Manufacturers Association, or GAMA. They do a lot of work with the FAA and the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, in helping make sure that when regulations are developed, that they are well informed. So the a safety agency maybe will publish draft regulations, and then GAMA brings together the different companies in their association to provide really expert feedback and try to help the governments shape the regulations and shape the rules and the certification bases and the different components that are necessary for aircraft and the infrastructure and pilots and operations. Other organizations, VAI, the Vertical Aviation International, used to be the Helicopter Association International. They're experts in vertical flight operations. Some of the other ones, the National Business Aviation Association. A lot of these aircraft will be used used for businesses, so they represent the business aspects. And the list really goes on and on of tons of different associations that really see this as an exciting future and really want to see how we can enable that their existence. We also work with standards development organizations and SDOs, such as SAE International. They were originally founded as a society of automotive, not automobile, but automotive engineers. So they do a lot of standards. There's other standards organization, ACM, EuroK, that we try to help inform their standards. National Fire Protection Agency for some of the fire hazards for batteries and hydrogen, things like that. We try to make sure that they're informed of the technology so they can develop standards and rules so that there's a level playing field and everybody understands what needs to be done.
So you're kind of a neutral sounding board of technical engineers, experts in the field of aviation. Obviously, safety is going to be absolutely critical in these areas. How do you see things going as far as the regulations being developed for eVTOL?
So there are regulations in development, in advanced stages of development, both in the U.S. and the European Union, again, FAA and EASA, also in China for the Chinese Aviation, Civil Aviation Authority of China, CAAC. In Canada and the UK, they're also looking at what FAA and EASA are developing and looking at how to leverage those for their own unique perspectives. So there's different types, I mentioned before, there's different types of certification. So you have to certify that the aircraft is airworthy. It's basic airworthiness certification. There's a couple different approaches that the different agencies are using around the world. And that's safety, right? And one of the things is, ideally, normally if this is a 4-passenger aircraft like a Cessna or a helicopter or something like that, there is, I'll say, a certain level of safety. Obviously, airliners have a much, much, much higher level of safety because there's hundreds of people. But instead of looking at the lower requirements for smaller vehicles, the general push has been up towards that airliner safety because potentially there could be thousands of flights or 10,000s of flights or more per year. So it's not just the 4 people that are exposed in that one flight. They're really considering that there could potentially be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of passengers traveling per year in the future That's kind of the vision. So to ensure that that vision, if it is realized, is as safe as really possible, the requirements are really pretty stiff. They're really pretty tough, which adds a lot of barriers to getting affordable. All that has a cost, both in weight and complexity and certification requirements, as well as the time required. So all these things add more cost. But the hope is that there'll be a a good operating business, a good business case where these aircraft can be operated profitably, and then lead to further advances in technology and safety and capability for in the years and the decades to come.
Yes, it will be quite an achievement because, frankly, the EASA and the FAA, our safety standards are pretty amazing when you think about the sheer numbers of people that fly in aircraft and how few injuries or deaths. Safety
Yeah,
is it's unique in fact of any industry, I think.
yeah. People sometimes don't realize that there has not been a fatality from a U.S. airliner crash or accident since 2009.
Yeah, that
So
it's
15
amazing.
years. There's one person that died in an airliner. It was a in-flight problem, but as far as like a crash or an accident, that's 15 years. That's millions of people have flown in the past 15 years on U.S. airlines uh, without without
Yeah,
dying,
it's
without a
really amazing
fatality.
because when you think about it, we kind of accept the fact in the US that 50,000 people a year die in auto accidents. But aviation safety is just incredible, and I think that's
Right.
one of the factors why, if a helicopter does go down, it does tend to make front page news because the safety standards again are so high, people's
Right.
expectations.
It's a rare thing. It's a rare event that something like that happens.
Yeah. So you recently had the event up in Montreal. Can you tell us some of the highlights of
Yeah.
FS and the in that French city? It's very much an aviation hub for North America.
Yeah, so the Montreal area is actually the number three center for aerospace in the world after Seattle with Boeing and Toulouse with Airbus. So the cluster there, it's got Bell Canada, so Bell used to be Bell Helicopter, but Bell Textron Canada, CAE, Bombardier, Pratt and Whitney Canada, some of the leading big companies and just tons of other suppliers and other companies. It's also the home for ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Authority, organization. ICAO is also based in Montreal. That's a UN agency that's charged with coordinating and helping all of the member states, pretty much almost every country in the world, to ensure that they have safe air travel in their country and international travel as well. So it was really great to go there. There's some leading edge eVTOL companies there as well. Um, so we had our 80th annual forum and technology display the week of the week of May the 6th. So we had our annual eVTOL short course. We've had probably 1,000 people go through all of our short courses, our eVTOL short courses, since we started giving them in 2018. So again, we were the trailblazers for that as well. Um, and we've had a number of people come back and say, the CEO of Archer said, yes, I took that class in 2018, and it really helped me to develop the Archer, 2019, the Archer approach to vertical flight. So many people have come back afterwards and told us how foundational it was in developing their company. Um, so we also had we had 3 days after that. It was 275 technical papers and about 45 invited presentations. And the technical papers covered stuff like everything from aerodynamics and acoustics to structures and materials, uncrewed systems, propulsion, and eVTOL. So um, I don't know, maybe a quarter or a fifth of all the papers had some relation to electric flight. We had I said we had all these invited presentations. So we had the CEOs of the 5 big helicopter companies. We had 9 other invited sessions, including 3 or 4 that were on electric VTOL or other types of advanced air mobility or AAM. And we had an exhibit hall of 65 exhibitors. A lot of them, especially the suppliers and the subsystem vendors and things like that, are very interested in eVTOL. So there were electric motor companies and software development companies, modeling simulation companies. So that is the world's largest and longest running vertical flight event in the world. We have about 1,200 attendees, and it covered, like I said, it covers everything from helicopters to eVTOL, and it was really, I think, just got such tremendous kudos from everybody. It's such an inspiring event, and next year we'll be in Virginia Beach in May for our 81st forum.
No, I highly recommend. I've had the privilege of going to some of your events, and aside from the displays of aircraft, it's all about meeting the people and the engineers and
Absolutely.
the paper. In spite of the internet and like this podcasting, it's very much one-on-one, building relationships and understanding with people.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also quite amazing to me about how much you learn at these events, which, again, that's probably you guys' forte is what you do.
And I should have absolutely, and I should have mentioned also that there's a number of eVTOL companies who now have offices or facilities in Montreal, the Montreal area. So that includes Jaunt Air Mobility and Whisk and Beta, and another one that I'm forgetting now. But it's really like I said, the number 3 place in the world, and the Canadian government has been very supportive of sustainability initiatives and aerospace initiatives that really make it a great place to hold our event.
Well, speaking of Canada, I've noticed, and I'd appreciate your observation on this. I've noticed that CAE seems to have a very big impact in the eVTOL industry regarding pilot training. Are they kind of the premier training company? Because I see them in a lot of events and a lot of people signing up with them.
Yeah, so CAE, so all these companies are members of VFS, and CAE is definitely one of the top companies. There are other top companies as well, but CAE has agreements with a number of the eVTOL developers, and they do both simulators, they do actual flight training. They have flight schools, all kinds of, really the whole gamut, the whole span of every type of training you could have, from from initial pilot training all the way to airline called air transport pilot, ATP, airline pilots, and all for all the different types of models of aircraft. So CAE is definitely one of the leading training companies, and so they're also deeply involved with the standards. One of the CAE leads, their regulatory lead for advanced air mobility, eVTOL, is the chair of the SAE G35 training standards committee. So they've been very active and vocal in expressing what needs to happen, and also some feedback on some of the pitfalls of some approaches that FAA has suggested that aren't finalized yet. So they are definitely a leading voice for what needs to be done and also how to do it.
I'm curious, you've mentioned ASE before in terms of the Automotive Association. A lot of automotive companies are getting behind eVTOL. Are you finding that VFS is getting approached by, some of the big players, Hyundai, Toyota, etc.?
Well, we've been working with a lot of these companies for several years. It's generally not the automotive companies that work directly with us. It's generally the subsidiary or the group that is focused on aviation. For instance, Hyundai the car company, they have a subsidiary called Supernal, which is their eVTOL company. So we work very closely with Supernal, not so much directly with the Hyundai Motors.
So the summer's here. We have Farnborough coming up. We have Oshkosh coming up. What's on the horizon? What's the future for VFS?
Yeah, so we'll be at Oshkosh. So Oshkosh, Wisconsin is the site of the Experimental Aircraft Association's annual Air Venture. And I forget, it's something like the 52nd year or something like that. This is actually the world's largest general aviation event. So, more than 650,000 attendees, something like 10,000 aircraft fly in. It's a big event. There's lots of discussions and panels and exhibits that'll be there on eVTOL and other types of aviation innovations. The Saturday and Sunday before AirVenture starts, we have our 18th annual Electric Aircraft Symposium, and this is for the whole gamut of advanced air mobility aircraft. So this is going to be electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, we call horizontal takeoff and landing, or electric conventional takeoff, or electric short takeoff and landing. And it covers battery electric, hybrid electric, hydrogen electric. We'll be covering infrastructure, vertiports, the motors, the batteries, hydrogen, fuel cells, the full gamut on the Saturday and Sunday before AirVenture.
Is it fair to say you're also involved in the infrastructure conversation? Because that's just as essential as the aircraft. I mean, it's kind of like the hand in the glove. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And in 2018, when when eVTOL was sort of coming to the fore of a lot of people's consciousness, maybe not the public, but in the aviation industry, we recognized that this was an important aspect. We got direction from our board of directors to address this. We brought on Rex Alexander as our infrastructure advisor. Starting in September of 2019, we had a workshop in Washington, D.C. that focused on some of the defining challenges like infrastructure. And we started having regular workshops. The second workshop was supposed to be the end of March of 2020. But because of COVID, we had to make it, virtual, and we had a series of different workshops every few months, really, over the next couple of years. We now have it as an annual event. Our 8th event is not quite annual, and it hasn't been 8 years, obviously, but our 8th event, our eighth infrastructure workshop, will be in Washington, D.C. in September 17 and 18. That's very convenient for having the FAA and other decision makers there again. Last September, we had it in New Jersey near Atlantic City, where the FAA has its technical center. So we really work with our members in government, industry, academic, government, to bring everybody together for a common understanding to advance the technology and the sector.
Well, Mike, thank you so much. I appreciate you being a guest, and you'll definitely be hearing from me again. One of my intentions is to bring MarketScale to one of your events so we can start to meet the players and talk with them.
Fantastic.
So again, Mike Hirschberg, Vertical Flight Society, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Martin. You too.